how to make a do-it-yourself lobster outdoor fence art. Now, I started with a piece of PVC. I found the outline of a lobster online and just printed it out on a bunch of 8.5 by 11 sheets, taped them together, and basically cut it out and then traced it onto a piece of 1-inch PVC board. I then cut that outline out just with a jigsaw. And I actually did it in two pieces. So the claws, and then I had a separate piece that I cut out for the body that's going to get glued on top. I shaped the claws, or rounded over all of the edges, just with a angle grinder with a flap sanding wheel. I'm using a 60 grit. It really grinds very, very quickly. This material is a little bit softer than wood. I chose to use the PVC rather than wood because it'll never rot. It'll never dry rot. And this is going to be an outdoor fence piece. I want it to kind of last as long as possible. I also use that angle grinder to make the lines of demarcation on each one of the joints. Very simple, just using the edge of that flap sanding wheel, just cut in just a little bit. And for the tail, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to follow the lines for each segment of the tail. Grind in just a little bit. And of course, I'll round over all of the edges. And you don't have to be perfect with the angle grinder. You're just doing all of the rough shaping. I'm going to go back over everything with an oscillating sander, and that'll smooth out all of these rough grind lines. And the same thing with the tail. Not only did I outline where each segment was, but I also ground them down and flattened it a little bit. Now back with the oscillating sander. Again, this is a pretty quick process. I just used an 80 grit paper, went over everything, and then I went back over it with a 120. It sands very quickly. And the main thing here is you really want to round over all of the edges. We're going to use a very high gloss resin finish, which will also fill in a lot of the little imperfections. If you want, you can go back to the claws. I did with a little Dremel grinder and a Dremel grinding tool, just to make those little knobs on each one of the claws. Just adds a little bit more detail. Then I spray painted the whole thing with a base coat of tan to start, just to kind of cover up all of the white. I added a little bit of dark. I added black just inside of the claws. And then I started painting red. I had two different color red spray paints, so I kind of sprayed a little bit of each, just so it wouldn't be one solid color. For the antenna, I just took a piece of aluminum shafting, cut it in half and bent it, drilled a couple holes and just pressed them in place. Those would be glued on with the same epoxy resin clear coat later. I glued the two pieces together with a Bondo. This is the fiberglass Bondo. It's just what I had. If you didn't have Bondo, you could actually screw them together from the back side, as long as the screws were not too long that they would go through. And then the final touches here are going to be with that high gloss resin. This is a resin from TotalBoat.com. I use their Maker Epoxy, and I mix it slowly together. It's a 2-part solution, and then I pour it on, brush it out with a disposable brush, and then I go over the whole thing with a butane lighter, just to heat up that resin a little bit so that any air bubbles trapped in the mix can rise to the surface and dissipate. And then you let this dry for a few days. Now, this could be the finished product. This color looks really good, looks kind of natural. I wanted it to really kind of pop a little bit more in the sun, so I added some of the pearlescent colors that you can get for epoxy resin. I added a little bit of a dark gray to the inside of the claws. And I also added that same dark gray to each one of the joints. And then I went with a pearlescent red. And you could also add some tan in if you'd like. And I just used a hairdryer. And the hairdryer, again, heats up that resin, and it allows you to push those colors around so that you can use the air coming out of the hairdryer to kind of push that color to wherever you want it. And it kind of gives you, a cool variation of colors, and it really sparkles in the sunlight. Should catch your eye. Once you have, all of the colors where you want them, then you really just have to set this aside to dry for 3 or 4 days. This is the finished product. I hope you liked it. If you did, please check out our other do-it-yourself projects on DIYEasyCrafts.com. Thank you very much for watching.